What's up, college sports fans? I'm Stucky.
I'm Colin Wilson.
I'm Mike Calabrese.
I'm Maria Marino.
I'm Charlie DiSturco, and we're excited that the Big Bets on Campus brand is launching its very own YouTube channel.
You'll be able to find every episode of the BBOC podcast, live shows, and other college sports content on this new channel.
Not only will the channel be dedicated to betting on college sports, but you'll also be able to find exclusive interviews with former college athletes,
college football power rankings,
and updates on other topics like the brand new College Football 25 video game series and the ins and outs of the recruiting trail all the way down to the transfer portal.
Whether you're into college football,
college basketball,
college baseball, or any of the college sports,
we are the home for college sports, and BBOC is the channel for you.
Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of the action. I'll see you there.
Welcome to Buckets, Action Network's WNBA betting podcast presented by BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks. I'm your host, Joe Delara, and I'm joined by Brian Fonseca. This is your women's Olympic basketball finals and bronze game betting preview. Brian and I are going to discuss the remaining teams in the women's bracket and where we're seeing value in the final two games. We also have an episode focused on the men's finals that's out right now on Buckets, so you can check that out as well. Brian, we've got the bronze medal game. We have Belgium -1 against Australia Sunday, 5:30 a.m. Eastern time. So you're going to want to get these bets in probably overnight, I would imagine. Brian, when you're looking at this game, Belgium's played some really, really tough competition lately. They just took France to overtime with the trip to the gold medal game on the line there. France obviously took care of business. What are your thoughts looking at this game? Belgium's been, I think, a little bit surprising. They started off cold, like 0-2, but they've kind of ripped off a bunch of wins since then versus this Australia team that just got pummeled by Team USA.
There was 7 or 8 different times I thought Belgium was going to win that game against France.
Me too.
That semifinal, I went into it expecting one of the best Olympic basketball games that we've seen in this tournament, which has had a bunch of really good and captivating games. This was one of the best, one of the absolute best. And it helps that you have a crowd that's invested in obviously one team, but also Belgium. Like there's been a lot of people from Belgium supporting Belgium in France. And this game with Belgium and France in front of the French crowd, it was awesome. And also for the first time ever in Olympic basketball history, we're getting same two countries in the gold medal games. We have USA, France on the men's side and the women's side. So I think that's pretty cool. It's the first time that that's ever happened. So with this game, Belgium is really, I think, better than they've shown.
Yep.
They just are. I keep saying it, but they won Eurobasket a year ago. And the interesting thing about this game with France is France did not have, if I'm not mistaken, Marine Johannes and Gabby Williams in that game in Eurobasket. They obviously had them this time around, made a difference, even though Johannes 1 for 10. This is the up and after getting 24, 25 points. This is the experience with her, but she's still one of the most captivating basketball players alive. And in looking at this, this is a little bit of a conventional wisdom pick that I feel like can bite me in the ass. But, given what we have to work with, because honestly, I give props to the books here because there ain't a lot of stuff out that I want to bet. Really, not really anything, because the props that are out, they're very, I don't feel great about either side, totals, spread, all these different things. You can really legitimately see them go either way more than usual, because as I tell you, betting is hard. People don't understand that shit. So to me, this is sort of a conventional wisdom spot where Australia played earlier, got blown out by Team USA 85-64. So you call it in a little early. They had been rounding into form before that after a shaky start, including the loss to Nigeria. And they had to beat France in France to sort of keep their run going. And Belgium is coming off an overtime game that they probably should have won. And as much as I like this Belgium team, I feel better about Australia, at least at the start of it. I can't tell you who's going to win, and I don't think Vegas could either, because the line is 1 right now. And the line that I like is Australia to at least get off a good start because of what I'm saying. Belgium's coming off overtime. Australia was blown out early, and Australia has also been, just playing better. as of late, not necessarily than Belgium, but just in general relative to where they were before. So Australia minus half a point. So basically, like, just to win the first quarter is what I like in this game the most. That's
Yeah,
minus 104 at one particular spot.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Just try to catch them while they're sleeping to a degree. That there's a lot of emotions that go along with some of these games too. And it's tough to come back even on like these slight rest advantages, disadvantages in this type of format where it's really just that sprint to the medal. I think that's super, super important. Now, that obviously takes us to our gold medal game. Like you mentioned, when you talked about the United States versus France, both teams are playing for the men's and the women's, and the spreads are actually about the same too. Team USA is favored by 16 points again. This game is on Sunday, 9:30 in the morning Eastern time, as well. So look, you're going to want to get these plays in. The lines are moving. These markets are still softer in terms of the fact that they move a lot, but the offerings seem to be sharper and sharper. They seem to still be a little bit more limited. Brian, when you're looking at this game, obviously Team USA should really take care of business here. Is the 16 points too many points to lay for you in this spot?
I'm struggling with the spreads in both of these gold medal games, Joe. I got to be honest. Listen, there may be some listeners out there who have conviction, like France is going to cover, or no, Team USA is going to cover. We've talked about on the women's side in particular, Team USA not covering as of late. They just did, albeit not by a ton, but they just did against Australia by 2 or 3 points, depending on where that line exactly closed. And it looked like there was going to be a backdoor cover, against them late in that game, which I was obviously pulling for because I had the 17.5. But you win some, you lose some. But ultimately, like for this particular game, there are a lot of different factors. Like you could just easily say, hey, Australia beat France in France, so Team USA should beat them by more. And it's like basketball doesn't always work that way, especially in high variable single elimination tournament basketball. You just don't quite truly know. And we haven't seen Team USA, either team, but the women, because this is who we're talking about. We haven't seen Team USA play against France in this crowd, in this environment. I don't know how much that matters. We're going to find out. The French team on, the women's side has been able to have some very, very spirited efforts, like the one we just saw against Belgium.
I think it helped.
They pulled that one out of their ass in overtime. Closed the game well, got Belgium in foul trouble, defended them really well down the stretch, was able to restrict them from hitting the 3-pointers they were trying to create. Julie Van Loo got hooked by her again, 2.5 threes. She went 2 for 9 or 2 for 10.
10. She got 10 up.
And it's like, listen, I'll defend the play to the death because there was the whole thing. It's like, listen, we're going to get volume. It's plus money. Fuck it, let's go. And shit happens. Like this is part of it. I've been doing a lot better than I'm letting on, but still,
Brian's crushing it.
You got to talk about the losses too, because they sting more than the wins help. But in this game, I don't really have a great feel. Like the props are out. We're seeing Asia Wilson 20.5. We're seeing Brianna Stewart 18.5 and the 6.5 boards, which is something I looked at. Gabby Williams is at 4.5 assists, but that's minus 160 at this point. And it's like, all right, I could see them needing her playmaking. And then Marine Johannes was always fun to bet on because you don't know if she's going to go crazy or not. She's at 12.5. And it's like, that's appropriate because she's either going to get 18 or 6. Like, this is just kind of how it works. The way her game I don't really, Joe, I don't really have a great feel on what I truly believe is going to happen other than Team USA winning, but I'm not going to lay minus 2,200 on the money line.
No, you can't do that.
You know what I mean?
It's tough because when you have a team that's favored by this much going into the tournament, they've done absolutely nothing to kind of give that away, right? The one thing that I will say is we finally we started to see Diana Taurasi's minutes get trimmed. This game against Australia, she finally didn't start. I don't think she didn't even play until the second half. She played 6 minutes. It was relatively ineffective, right? 0 for 2 from the field, 1 board, 2 assists, 1 turnover, right? Not really a huge performance from her. To me, that signified that there was a conscious thought that we can't just keep starting off these games in a little bit of a hole, or like not out to like, we're not optimizing our best lineup here, because you're running Tarazi with Asia Wilson, Brianna Stewart, obviously to start the game. You should be crushing teams when you have those two players on the court. When you have Asia and Stewart on the court, and they weren't doing that. They weren't getting off to those big leads in the first quarter. The Team USA was actually crushing the second quarter, and a lot of that had to do with the bench unit coming in. The bench unit was awesome, and then Tarazi wasn't playing as much in the second quarter. And you know, she's obviously she's a legend. She's arguably the GOAT for the WNBA, right? But at this juncture, at this point in her career, that's not really what they need from her. But given the fact that we've now seen this in this game against Australia, in the semifinal game, I would expect that to continue into the finals here. I would expect that Tarazi doesn't start. Given that, I like the United States in the first half, -7.5, -8.5. In large part, France just played this overtime game against Belgium. That was it's for some of the similar reasons that you want to back Australia. I'm going to say, like, I think this is a great opportunity to get a France team that's maybe on a little bit tired legs, maybe kind of like used up a lot of that equity. Like, it was a very emotional win. You have Team USA who destroyed Australia, and their best players barely even played. Like, Asia only played 20 minutes. Stewie only played 22 minutes. They're going to have the opportunity to not only be rested, but also come into this game like locked in, fired up, ready to go. And they have a little bit extra rest because they played the earlier game. So to me, backing Team USA to start off hot and early and not only set the tone, but like make sure that there's without a doubt, suck the air out of that stadium is the way that I see this, because they're going to be able to watch the men's game. The men's game is the day before. So that's on Saturday. We're going to know like just how into it that French like crowd is, the French like in the audience is. And I think that the men's game is arguably like a little bit closer, just based on what we've seen, right? I think that it's like a little bit tighter maybe. And we'll see just how much like the French crowd can kind of keep them into the game, right? I think Team USA, the women's, going to see that and be like, no way, we're going to start off strong and we're going to set the tone. We're going to take the crowd out of this game immediately and just dominate from start to finish. So I like them in the first half, -7.5, -8.5. I think that that's a number that they can definitely clear, in this game.
To support your point, because I just did a quick search as you were doing that, being a good teammate, I hope. They have led at halftime every game by 8 or more points. 8 or more points. So, like in the Olympics so far, they're 5-0, and a lot of the worry has been the first quarter and the fourth quarter. I think for a lot of people, like Japan at halftime, they led by 11 points. That was the very first game, and a lot of people were like, "Hey, Japan, they played really well, whatever, because they just played hard, but they kind of still got their ass whooped." It's the Team USA women's program. Like, what are you gonna do? Like,
yeah,
like this is what it is. With Belgium, who played them the best so far out of everybody in the Olympics, Team USA was up by exactly 8 points, and it was tied after the first quarter. And then in the second quarter, they went on that run, and they ended up winning by 13. It got a little not dicey at the end, but it was a single-digit game in the fourth quarter. Then against Germany in the third game, we saw them losing at the end of the first quarter. They go up 15 in the second quarter. They end up with a halftime lead of 12 points. Nigeria in the quarterfinals. So this is where we get the new starting lineup. Jackie Young is in the starting lineup now. This is important. And they get off to a good start in this game. They're leading at halftime by 19 points. And Nigeria, the reason that's a 14-point game is because Nigeria just kind of like was at the end starting to really get off, and Team USA wasn't. Yeah, like that's really what it was. And then this last game against Australia, Team USA led at halftime by 18 points. So I think I'm probably going to roll with you. Like, this is probably going to be the play here. There's a 7.5, there's an 8.5. Obviously, would take the 7.5 just to feel better about it. You only worry about France sort of starting off with that hot crowd, but the gap in ability may be too much, and it may not even matter. And
Yeah.
also, France is coming off that overtime game in which they played last, hours later than Team USA did.
Yeah, and that's why I like the first half as opposed to the first quarter. I was close to the first quarter, then I was thinking about it a little bit more. I was like, just in case France like makes a couple threes right away, then like that first quarter line gets tough. Team USA is so deep. Like if you start once you start getting into some of those bench minutes, those bench rotations, that's I think where Team USA a lot of times like they really can spread out the lead. So that's why I like the first half at -7.5, -8.5. I'm comfortable really at either number. But Brian, do you have any final thoughts on this game before we get these guys out of here?
Yeah, we should probably get into the props just a little bit. Again, at the time we're recording this, there's not a ton out. There's going to be a bunch out. Honestly, the books, could be a little faster with the women's games. We would like some more options, also combos and things of that nature. You and I talked about RA, rebounds and assists for Breanna Stewart potentially.
Yes.
You looked at the assists, you kind of liked it. I looked at the rebounds, kind of liked it. Neither of us have committed to playing it yet. We'll see. Follow on the app. Joe especially because he's super active on there. But follow on the app, and Breanna Stewart, 6.5 boards. The assists are at 3.5. You're expecting the RA to be 9.5, 10.5, probably 10.5. They'll probably
right in that range. Yeah.
Add that little extra. And listen, in the gold medal game against Japan in 2021, different team, Japan's smaller, but she did have like 14 or 15 rebounds. And I was wondering, okay, is she going to be the one crashing the boards in this particular contest? Asia Wilson's points and rebounds, because, immediately with Team USA, it's like, all right, big game. They're going to go to Asia repeatedly at times. 20.5 points, nowhere close to that today. Didn't need to be. I can't really call it on this one because this is one that, again, even when you do PR for Asia Wilson, that's going to be in the low 30s. Like, this is a tough one to call. Breanna Stewart's RA is interesting. Gabby Williams' assists are interesting, but there's not a prop where I'm immediately jumping to that one.
Yeah.
And we also looked at some total team stuff too.
Yeah. The biggest issue has really been that Team USA has been just demolishing teams. So like when you have that, it gets hard to hit some of these props because like you just don't, it just doesn't happen. Like we don't need these minutes out of these players. So it gets to be very, very tough, especially if you're betting overs. And then at the same time, you don't really want to play unders because you're basically saying then like you should be betting like the spread, like just bet the spread instead, then like bet for a blowout, bet something else, because some of these, it's like, it is tough because these are the best players in the world and they have the ability to go over in such a short period of time because they just get so scorching hot from the field or from, if they really lock down on defense, you're going to rack up a bunch of boards. So it's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be a great set of games here. But to recap, Brian, on the Australia game, you have Australia first quarter -0.5 at -104. And I have the USA first half -7.5, -8.5, whichever one you can find at the better juice. Go ahead, Brian.
I may, because I haven't logged it in the app at the time this being recorded, I may change it to first half just because of what you said.
Fair enough.
That's -111, so it's not like a big difference. But listen, that like the high again, this is single elimination basketball, and it's the best. I love it. Like it doesn't drag on like a 7-game series when the two teams are just like, no, it's just one and done. It's a lot of excitement, but that makes it, in my opinion, harder to bet. It just does.
Yeah,
it just does. You don't have the same amount of trends. You don't have this, that, and the third. Like I'm sure that there are a bunch of people getting their fucking ass handed to them and trying to throw down a lot of money on props and things of that nature. Like I've been keeping like, I'm like, I'll put a little something here, a little something here. We got some futures that we're sitting on that look really good. So I also don't feel the need to just go crazy with these games, especially if I don't feel strongly about a lot of what's going to happen.
100%. So it's gonna be fun. Definitely tune in. Set your alarm clocks early, because you guys are gonna have to wake up to catch all these games. But look, that'll do it for this episode of Buckets presented by BetMGM. Be sure to download the Action Network app and subscribe to the podcast, because Maria Marino will be back next week as the WNBA returns. For Brian Fonseca, I'm Joe Delera. Thanks for listening. Good luck with all your bets, and we'll see you next time.